Good evening. I'm welcoming you to this evening's Rotterdam Candidate Forum. My name is Pauline Kinsella. I serve as a member of the board of the Schenectady County League of Women Voters, and we are here this evening to assist and support the process of providing an impartial candidate forum event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We put an emphasis on voting, voter registration, get out the vote activity, and of course with candidate forums, we attempt to provide the voting public with as much information as they can receive about the positions of the candidates for whom they might or might not vote in the fall. We do not endorse candidates, nor do we endorse or support political parties. I want to be clear about that. This is a nonpartisan organization, and we are grateful for the opportunity to assist in this very important process. This evening, we will give you the opportunity to gather information about the candidates for the Rotterdam Town Board to help you make voting decisions. All of the candidates who will be on the ballot on November 7th have been invited to tonight's forum. Unfortunately, we have had to cancel the portion of the forum in which the candidates for the County Legislature District 4 would appear because most of the candidates did not accept the invitation to participate. The League's policy is that candidates running for an office unopposed cannot take part in the formal part of the forum. Molly Collins is running for town supervisor. Ms. Collins, would you please stand and be recognized? Right there. Thank you. Larry Lamora is running for the position of highway superintendent. Mr. Lamora, if you're present, please stand. Thank you. And finally, James Bradshaw is running for the position of town justice. Mr. Bradshaw, are you present this evening? No. Okay. We have allowed time at the end of the forum for Ms. Collins, Mr. Lamora, and Mr. Bradshaw, if he is able to join us, to speak individually to those attending. So you will have the opportunity to ask questions and receive answers from those candidates. These candidates are all serving our community and participating in the democratic process by their willingness to run for office, and we are grateful for their hard work. We have a few ground rules. We ask that no campaign signs, swag, or literature be visible or distributed in this room. There is a table for campaign literature outside the room where people can collect materials if they're there and they wish to take them. There is also information about the League of Women Voters. Please take a look. No recording or pictures are allowed unless authorized by the League. There is a recording being taken of this event, so there is a recording that will be available to the public. And finally, please silence your cell phones for the duration of the forum. We appreciate that. You're welcome to submit written questions on the cards that are being distributed, and if you need a card or want more than one card, we have someone who's passing out cards and pens or pencils for you to complete a question that will be addressed to the candidates who will be speaking this evening. Please indicate the office for whom the questions are directed. We have positions, our candidates for the town board who are here will answer your questions as you place them to them relating to town board work. The questions should be suitable for all candidates who are here to speak this evening. So if you have a question, it needs to be addressed to both of our town board candidates who are here this evening. We are going to ask you to hold up your cards, and an usher will collect them throughout the forum. So if a question occurs to you, don't feel as though you had to put it out at the beginning. We will collect them as the evening goes on. The questions will be screened, however, and any questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used, and that is my responsibility and our question screeners' responsibility to make sure that the questions are fair and well balanced. Questions that fall into the same general category may be consolidated, so if you don't hear your question as it specifically was written, it may be because someone else had a question and we're consolidating those questions. We hope that there will be plenty of time to answer the questions, and please feel free to contact the candidates directly for more information. This is a part of an ongoing process to assure that voters in Rotterdam are as fully apprised of the positions of candidates as they possibly can be. For each office, the candidates will have a 2-minute opening statement. This has been told to the candidates already, so they're aware of this. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, and a 1-minute closing statement. We have timers who will hold up a yellow card when there are 30 seconds left, and a red card when time is up. So please, candidates, do note our timekeepers in front of you. During the time of questioning, the questioning time of the forum, we will vary back and forth who will go first, so that it's not the same person each time. And after each statement or question, would you please hold your applause until both of the candidates have spoken. So, we have before us this evening 2 candidates for the Rotterdam Town Board. Who are present this evening, Spencer Lanning and Ronald Schlag. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here this evening. And what I'd like to do next is ask Mr. Lanning to make his opening statement.
Can we figure out, are the mics on right now? Do I have to check on or off?
They were checked, so they should be okay.
Sure.
If anyone in the back of the room has difficulty hearing, please raise your hand, let us know. Thank you.
I can speak pretty loud. My name is Spencer Lanning. I'm running for Rotterdam Town Board. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and thank everyone in attendance. I think ultimately the opportunity to hear the candidates and their opinions and views is what will lead to them being able to make the most informed decision when the polls open. I'm originally from South Carolina, that's where I was born and raised, but I've been a Rotterdam resident for the past 8 years. My wife and all of her family have been in Rotterdam for generations, and it's where my wife and I intend on raising our family. My wife and I have 3 small children. We have 2 girls, aged 6 and 3, Bella and Olive, and an 8-month-old little boy named Spencer. They're the reason that I've decided to get involved. One thing I think we can all agree on is that the current political climate and landscape is complicated, it's messy, it's ever so polarized. And I think ultimately that's what sort of makes good candidates not want to get involved. And I believe very strongly that it shouldn't be that way and it doesn't have to be that way. I think what ultimately makes me the best candidate for the town board is my experience running our local business for the past 8 years. Over that time, I've handled the day-to-day operations for over 12 of our restaurants that we have. I've been fortunate enough to manage over 1,000 employees. I focused on raising sales, cutting costs. I've been negotiating contracts, negotiating leases. I've had more really terrible, difficult discussions and conversations with employees than I care to count. And I've made some really tough decisions that ultimately will help secure a better future for our company and our employees. I believe it's those experiences, whether they're tough or great, ultimately over the past 8 years is what's going to have give me the tools to have such a positive impact for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanning. And Mr. Schlag.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and everybody that's here tonight that took the time out of your day to come and listen to us. So I wish there were more of us here so you get a better understanding of all the candidates, but you're stuck with him and I. So again, I've been in Rotterdam since 2005, and I've had the opportunity to raise children here. I've had 2 stepsons that are now 28 and 30. My older son Alex is 25, graduated from Shelmont. I have an 11-year-old son, Max. So he was born and raised here. He goes to school in Albany, actually. But I have had the opportunity to be on the Rotterdam Little League Executive Board as well as the Rotterdam Carmen Little League Executive Board. Coached all my kids. My girlfriend that lives with me now, her son and daughter live with us as well. Both go to Shelmont. But yeah, I've been here 18 years. I've just recently gotten involved in politics, and part of the reason I think same with Spencer is you look at your kids, and I believe that society's rot from the top down, and there's a lot of rot going on up top, and I think that we as potential candidates can keep some of that rot from happening here in our local communities. I just look at my kids. I saw what happened with the pandemic. And I think it's time to jump in the game and get involved. Believe me, I'm not going to be jumping through many more ladders. I'm about as far as I'm going to go with this. But I do appreciate your time. Looking forward to building on what the current administration has done. I think Rotterdam's in the right direction, and I definitely think that we can add and help and accentuate what's going on now in Rotterdam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlag. Do we have questions ready to proceed?
Yes. There you go.
Thank you. The first question is, what are your thoughts on allowing rentable accessory dwelling units in single-family residential zones? And Mr. Schlag, would you like to begin, please?
So I guess we're talking about like an Airbnb type situation or vacation rental by owner. I guess that's what the question is. I'm not opposed to it. I think that honestly, I think you want a property. I think you should be able to do what you want with your property within limits, but as long as it's done in a manner that it's kept well and it's done professionally, I don't see any problem with something like that.
Thank you. And Mr. Lanning?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have a ton to differ from Ron on this one. I think that ultimately subletting or dividing out those spaces and renting them, as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of the neighborhood and the neighbors, I don't see a problem with it. And ultimately, I think that is where the first priority should be. My mic's not on? Better?
No.
Worse? Better?
There you go.
Better? Better.
Okay, the next question. Should the town build a new police or courts building? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning to begin on that question, please.
I think that.
Much better.
Yeah. Wow. I think that anybody that has been in Rotterdam for at least a little while understands the passion that is behind this decision. I think saying the word Viaport is still a harsh buzzword for most citizens here. Ultimately, I believe that we have to sit back and look at all of the different options we have and really consult with our citizens first and foremost on where we go as a direction. I think anything that is going to add to our debt service long-term, in general, it violates my fiscal principles as a conservative. So I think that's where we should start.
Thank you. Mr. Schlag?
Yeah, I would say, I think you should look at all options. I think you should put it out as a referendum to the people, have public hearings. I have a problem with people, or I have a problem with tearing down perfectly good buildings that structurally are sound. I think they can be retrofitted. I think that you can do something with them. I just don't see the sake of raising something that can be used in some way, shape, or form. As long as that can functionally be done so that it meets the needs of, the current situation, I absolutely don't believe in building brand new, or, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to destroy a perfectly good building.
Thank you. Next question. And I'm going to ask Mr. Slag to begin. The question is, should the town consolidate the police department with the county?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that it makes sense to have a town police department. I don't see a lot of sense in consulting it with the county. I think there are different issues that happen in the town that would be different from policing in the county. My father was a sheriff in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I think what he experienced from a county level is very different from what the city police experience in the city of Pittsburgh itself. So I don't think that makes sense. I mean, that's something I would probably have to do a little more research on. I'm not going to propose that I know all of the ins and outs of this, but I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. Mr. Lanning.
Okay, so I don't believe that it would be a very good idea. I think that the Schenectady County Police, anybody that has ventured up past Ryan X Corners Road knows how desolate it can get very quickly up there. And I think that Schenectady County in general has a lot more on their plate as far as different variances of issues that they have to deal with. I think Rotterdam is more concerned about protecting our community, and I believe they do a very good job of doing that.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do you have any guidelines that you would use to improve economic development in Rotterdam? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning to proceed.
Yeah, so economic development, business development, I think is something that sort of I have a lot of experience with, or at least a lot of opinions. I believe that anybody that has ventured into the world of opening up a business in any of the different municipalities around the area have quickly learned how difficult it can be to navigate. I think that Rotterdam should do a better job of trying to facilitate to the local small business owner to help allow them to navigate a process that is frightening for the first timers. I believe that ultimately that when we get the big time developers that we need to come in, I believe that we should also help them get acclimated to the area and also help them get open as quick as possible. Ultimately that will help the tax base and provide needed services for our community.
So I think that I think it's essential to have a better plan for economic development. I know that we have a planning board, but I think that probably there should be a committee for economic development board as well. Whether you combine the two, they're pretty similar. My background is in sales. I've been in sales, pharmaceutical sales for 30 years. And I think that it's almost as though you have to have a person or people that are going to go out and sell Rotterdam to these businesses to bring them in. We can't keep taxing people. We can't keep raising taxes. So we got to, when you run a business, you got to bring in more revenue. As you know, bring in more revenue or cut costs or be more efficient. And I think it's essential that we bring in additional businesses to the Rotterdam area that can help share and burden the tax burden within the community.
Thank you. The next question is, as residents of Rotterdam, what public services do you believe could be handled better, possibly under the private sector, to possibly give some financial relief to tax-paying homeowners in the town? And I'm going to ask Mr. Slag to respond.
So, I don't know that there's a lot of cuts could be made there. I mean, I don't know that I can think of anything off the top of my head. I know EMS, you could privatize EMS. I don't know what that would look like. I know that Mohawk was looking to come in at one point in time and was actually going to pay the town. But I mean, I would really have to really take a look at some of the information and dig down a little bit deeper there. I don't have enough knowledge, I guess, to really answer completely.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't believe that there's enough time to answer this question effectively. I think it's a pretty loaded question to try and privatize any public support for our community. I do think that there are opportunities to absolutely lessen the tax obligation on our individuals and citizens. I think that as a business owner, we look within before we ask our customers to pay a premium for the things that we offer. I believe that the town of Rotterdam should absolutely look for ways to be more efficient and nimble as we continue into the coming years.
Thank you. The next question is, what issue do you see facing the town and how would you solve the issue? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning to proceed.
Just to make sure I understand the question, is what issue?
It says, the question is what issue? I assume what is the biggest issue is what perhaps is being asked here. But what issue do you see facing the town and how would you solve the issue?
I'm going to take the lesser of the probably what everybody expects me to say here. I believe that the bigger issue that we sort of face right now is that the town has not published a financial report since 2020. 2021, 2022 are still out there. They're mandated from New York State Government Comptroller's Office, and I could be wrong on all this, but I believe that I am correct. I think that ultimately it equates to something like driving down the road without a speed limit. And I think that in order for us to get on board and get in compliance with New York State, I think it should be a very big priority, especially when we're talking about budget proposals and managing and financing the budget.
Thank you. And Mr. Schleck.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've been seeing is I think there's a huge infrastructure issue around the town, whether it be water, sewers, roads. I don't think that until recently there's been enough investment. If you take a look at you take a look just for example of the fire hydrants, they're going to all need to be replaced eventually. I think there's an infrastructure issue, and I think we're going to have to figure out how best to address those so that we're not putting unburdened taxes on the residents. I mean, again, it's a lot to work through. Some of this infrastructure is from the 40s, from what I've heard. So I think that's one of the priorities that we need to do within Rotterdam.
Okay, thank you. How would you work to help members of the town and the people who have recently immigrated to the United States? What would you do to help alleviate the situation? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning to begin.
I believe that this is a very sensitive topic, and it is a very emotionally driven one. Anybody that was here for the town board meeting, the special town board meeting, which I think is exactly what the town should have done, it was interesting. And I think ultimately, and unfortunately I will say, is there's a lot of losers in this scenario. There are a lot of people that are suffering and they are not making out in the positive direction with this. I think the most unfortunate side of it is our school system that are being charged with financing the education for these children that are there. And I think, having the children, being submitting to the political game that seems to be at play at the federal level, it's unfortunate that federal issues have anything to do at a town level.
Thank you. Mr. Schlag?
So, I have an issue with this, and I think that this is a failure at the federal level. I don't think that something like this should ever have occurred. With that being said, there are people here. I feel for those people. There's a lot of people who come here to have a better life in this country. I have an issue where I believe that this is an illegal behavior. I don't believe that this is something that should be enabled moving forward. And I also feel that if you start to enable illegal behaviors, what other illegal behaviors are you going to enable? This is a huge cost to the town, to the state, to the country. I think you got to work within the means that you have to try to accommodate as best as possible. but I truly believe that this situation is not sustainable, and I think there needs to be something done more at federal or state level.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do you have any comments on increasing public safety in Rotterdam? And I'm going to ask Mr. Schlag to begin with that question, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, with Rotterdam, you know, giving the police the training and the resources that they need, you know, I believe, you know, my father was, as I said, a police officer in Pittsburgh. I think that it's essential that we provide them the resources and training and tools that they need. I don't know if hiring more officers is the question. I know that recruiting is an issue, so I think that at the end of the day, I would really have to look and see what staffing looks like, and then determine what and what other resources from a staffing standpoint would be needed to provide public safety from a you know, community standpoint. As I mentioned, fire hydrants, I think that's a community safety issue as well. I think that any broken fire hydrant should be fixed ASAP. I don't like driving around seeing fire hydrants covered. That's not a good thing, and that's a huge public safety issue.
Thank you.
So I'll hop in. For the public safety issues that I've seen and that I hear about from friends and family, the police, and in light of what's happened right up the road from us, absolutely, as a father, is just absolutely one of the worst possible scenarios. It bothered me immensely. My wife was all, it's terrible. And I think ultimately you look back at the police and hope that they are trained and have been outfitted and given the funding that they need. I know that the current police contract for employment, it ends in 2 months, I believe. And that was signed in June after a year and a half of no negotiating or moving real progress toward a contract with the police. And I think ultimately, and I understand they're expensive, I think they're well worth their money based off what's happened recently.
Thank you. The next question is, do you have any thoughts on the recent budget that was proposed and approved yesterday? And I'm going to ask Mr. Lanning to begin, please.
From when I looked at it briefly, I think it's like 75 pages, and there's a bunch of numbers, and it's all proposed. But you know, really quickly off the first couple pages that I saw, I believe that there's some things that are going to need to be clarified or worked out. For some reason, the deputy comptroller that was supposed to be a part-time hire until our main comptroller was brought up to speed is going to be making more than our comptroller, and I think that's an odd circumstance. There's some stuff with the outside counsels that seems like I just need some clarity on the $364,000 compared to when we had an in-house attorney at $100, and ultimately it sort of peels all the way back to what I mentioned earlier, is getting those financial reports that New York State requires done, because we can try to balance the budget all we want, and if we're not going to increase the tax obligation to our citizens, then we're dipping into our general fund.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say similar thoughts in regards to the comptroller issue. I think that there should need to be something that's going to be resolved around that issue. I think that's probably something that would have to be looked at. You know, I think that, you know, I think the budgeting process is a long process. I've sat in on some of the meetings. I didn't go to the meeting last night, but I think there's a lot of give and take. And one thing that I would say when it comes to the budget, feel free to come to these meetings, sit in, listen to what they're saying, provide feedback if you can. I think Brenda in the back, she's attended some of them and had some conversations too. So budgeting process is a process, and I think it's tough to really dig into that 75 pages.
Thank you. The next question is, campaign contributions from big organizations, lobbyists, or unions, especially those from outside the district, can heavily influence the decision-making of an elected official. What do you think about outside groups helping finance local campaigns? And I'm going to ask Mr. Schlag to begin.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a ton of donations. I did have a friend of mine from high school in Pennsylvania that I haven't seen for 40 years donate the most to me, and then a young single mother here in Rotterdam. But yeah, I believe it should stay local. You know, when you're having unions from Washington D.C. donate to you, it makes me wonder what the payoff for that would be. So I think it should be a local situation. I think there should be probably a dollar limit on that as well, but not for the big unions and corporations donating to local candidates.
Mr. Lanning?
I think I share a very similar stance. I think that there should be I know that there's reporting, and I know it's open for the public to see. Anybody that's ever been involved in one of the biggest whirlwinds for me was seeing the campaign finance and the reporting on the back end. Just is wild. I think that the ability for people and citizens to remain more informed, their ability to see those transactions, to see who is donating, and I think anybody at the federal level that is receiving those donations from the super PACs or the big time entities that thinks that it's not pay for play is, I don't know, it's just wild. Yeah, I think transparency is absolutely the key through it all.
Thank you. Could you please share what motivated you to run for the town board? I'm going to ask Mr. Schlag to begin.
So I did cover a little bit of that in my opening, but again, it's really the kids, and you look in the eyes of your kids, and you want to make sure there's a great town for them to enjoy. Again, I truly believe that we can, at the town board level, protect the citizens from some of the craziness that's going on at the state and the federal level, because it's madness. I didn't do it for the money, so you know. And actually, you know, that's not a reason to do it. My plan is actually to donate to 4 different organizations, whatever I would make in the town board. I just think that's the right thing to do. I'm not here to you know, for any power issues or any issues around back end business deals. I'm here just to try to serve and do the best I can for the people of Rotterdam.
Thank you. Mr. Lanning?
Yeah, I'm not going to circle back for fear of being emotional about my children. I don't know if anybody wants to see me cry up here. But ultimately, it is my kids that is first and foremost. I also think that I have a unique talent of having really difficult conversations, apparently, and working toward, through controversy or through struggle, to provide an outcome. And I think ultimately, the inability for those in the community that can't speak up and they're afraid of having those conversations, I think having a representative that is willing to go to bat for them is also a motivating factor for me.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your priorities in regard to serving on the board? And Mr. Lanning, why don't you begin with that, please?
Being from South Carolina, they pride themselves on being the least taxed state in the union, and I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing. I think they have some big time deficiencies down there, but I think first and foremost, I think that we should look at and try to limit the burden placed on our citizens from a tax obligation standpoint. I think that our parks and our community and what we can provide for our youth and our children to provide them better outreaches so that they have a community in the scenarios where they are faced with difficult decisions at home or at school. Those are, you know, to me, the most important things when I look around as far as ways that we could, you know, help our community.
Thank you. The New York Climate Protection Act. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's
I
all right.
apologize, Mr. Schlag. Please proceed.
Is that an option?
I hit the red button. It's like the Staples button. So, now you threw me off.
Sorry about that.
You know, as Spencer said, I think keeping, you know, taxes flat at least. I would like to see taxes go down for the residents. I know that's a really complicated thing, but I think that's a priority. I think priority, again, is, as we talked about, economic development, bringing things into Rotterdam that will burden some of that tax issues that the residents see. I think that, you know, I have a, you know, question about the water billing for some of the districts. I just think there's a disparity there from district to district. I think that should be looked at. And then also, you know, some efficiencies. You know, I have a business background. I have an MBA from St. Joe's. And, you know, if we ran if businesses ran like the government runs with other people's money, we'd be out of business in a second. So I think looking at efficiencies within the organization where we can save money and where we can potentially have, you know, cut some of the waste in regards to staffing.
Thank you. The New York Climate Protection Act addresses climate change by reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 70% by 2030. What can Rotterdam do to help achieve that goal? And Mr. Schlag, would you begin with that, please?
You know, I think some of the climate issues that I'm seeing, I don't know that are sustainable, and I'm not sure how that's going to be accomplished. You know, obviously, you know, I have solar panels on my house. I have no issue with solar panels whatsoever. But I don't know, you know, hybrid cars, but I think forcing citizens within the United States, Rotterdam, New York State, you know, to not use certain stoves or to drive certain vehicles, I think it should be a choice. I'm completely okay. As I said, I have solar panels. I'm okay with that. I just don't think it should be forced on citizens. And from a cost standpoint, I think it's extremely costly for people, and people are having some hard times right now. And, you know, trying to force some of these issues on these folks is not a good situation. So, you know, I think you do what you can, but I don't think that the goals are realistic.
Mr. Lanning?
Yeah, in that same stride, oh man, I think that a lot of the green initiatives are hopeful at best. I think that the current chip manufacturing project that the state is trying to bring in, where they're promising for it to be offset by green energy, is an absolute impossibility. I don't think it's possible. I think that they're going to consume more energy than the city of Buffalo was the last stat I saw. And I don't think that there's enough green initiative out there to see it all the way through. I believe, you know, back to locally here, what I would like to see with solar panels, and I'm not against solar panels. I just want to see, you know, with these 30-year leases on people's agricultural land, I want to see a policy in place where it talks about how these things are going to be recycled and disposed of. I think we're going to have an absolute tragedy on our hands in 15, 20 years when these things start, you know, needing to be replaced. And I'd like to see some kind of burden being placed back onto the developers to foot that cost that are profiting off all this.
Can I add to something? Can I add that?
Did you, I think you used up your time. No?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I want to add is I've seen some issues around, from a safety standpoint, of what happens when solar panels burn, when some of these wind turbines burn, electric batteries and electric vehicles burning, and I don't know from a safety standpoint what that does to the environment as well. So I think there's a safety issue rolled into that as well.
And Mr. Lanning, do you have anything? Do you have anything you want to add? Okay, thank you. Okay, there are a couple more questions that are here, but we have really gone through pretty much all of them, and some of them are a little bit repetitive of questions that have already been presented. So I'm going to ask each of the candidates to give their closing statement. It's a 1-minute closing statement, so if you could, in particular, address. If you would just go ahead with your closing statements, that would be helpful. And Mr. Lanning, let's go with you, please.
One of the first things I noticed when I came to my first town board meeting was the crest that sits right in front of this panel. I'm going to try to point to it where the middle is, somewhere in this. Yes, and it's also up there I just saw, which is fantastic. It's easier for me to point to. I'm being a former NFL player. I really love sayings and mottos and stuff to motivate, and the crest has that we're stronger through effort. The city of Rotterdam over in Europe is stronger through struggle, and I think that the struggle that we should be taking, that should take place in this town, should be toward compromise and collaboration, not toward decisiveness. And I think ultimately the voters will have an opportunity to vote whichever way they see fit, and I encourage every single member of the community to get out and vote.
Thank you. Mr. Schleck.
I'm not an NFL ex-football player, okay? Full disclosure on that, I know it's hard to believe, but hey, listen, so I've been in Rotterdam, like I said, for 17 years. I love the town, I love the people. I was part of the emergency management committee. I'm currently on the parks committee. There's a lot of good in Rotterdam, and I think as being part of the town board, it's to build on what the current board has done. I think it's moving in the right direction. But I think, given my business background, my sales background, I think there are opportunities that I can definitely add to benefit the town. Again, I appreciate you being here, and it was nice to meet you finally. I appreciate all of you for taking your time. I mean, listen, running this campaign is very interesting. It's a gruel. It's not easy, but it's awesome getting out and seeing different parts of the community, talking to different people, and I would just hope that you would vote for me in November, and maybe this could be my seat when I get voted in. How's that? Or I'll just stay here. I won't give it up. Squatter. I'm just squatter. But thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it. Nice to meet everybody and see friendly faces in the audience.
I want to thank both of the candidates for being here this evening and being so responsive to the questions that have been asked. I want to thank the audience for so many interesting and important questions. So we are prepared now to close this formal part of this session. I'm sure that the candidates who are here would be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have that have not been addressed yet. I want to remind you, as have the candidates, remind you to vote. The New York State will have early voting in the following locations: at the Karen B. Johnson Library, in Schenectady, in the South Schenectady Fire Station, the Glenville Senior Center, and Niskayuna Town Hall. All voters may vote at any of the early voting locations in Schenectady County. Early voting will take place between October 28 and November 5th. And Election Day is November 7th. More information is available on the table outside the doors here. Absentee ballots are available for this election. We can make sure that you get those, get the opportunity to request an absentee ballot as you need to. Voters may submit an application for an absentee ballot with the Board of Elections by mail, postmarked no later than Tuesday, October 23rd, or in person at the Board of Elections no later than November 6th. Absentee ballots must be received by the Board of Elections by November 7th. So please keep those dates in mind, and I'm going to encourage you once again to take advantage of the fundamental right to vote. I want to thank the audience for being here this evening, and I want to especially thank the candidates for being here and answering questions. We appreciate it. Thank you.